All right, let's dive into a really huge moment in database history, a time when this beloved open source tool took a giant leap and became an enterprise powerhouse. We're talked about MySQL, of course, and the story of how just two specific versions changed absolutely everything. Okay, take a look at this. Select from select. I mean, to any developer today, this is just a basic subquery. It's the kind of thing you write without even thinking about it. But, and this is the wild part, there was a time, not so long ago, when trying to run this simple statement in MySQL was completely impossible. So you can imagine, when the ability to run queries like this finally showed up, it was way more than just another new feature. It was a signal of a massive shift. It was a fundamental change in what MySQL was and what it could do for developers and businesses all over the world. Now let's rewind a bit to the early 2000s. MySQL was already incredibly popular. It was the M in the famous LAMP stack. That's Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP, which powered a huge portion of the early web. But it had a very specific reputation. Everybody loved it for its raw speed and its rock-solid reliability. But in the boardrooms, in the big enterprise data centers, the critics would kind of dismiss it. Why? Well, it had the performance, for sure, but it didn't have the capability of the commercial giants like Oracle or SQL Server. It was missing all those advanced SQL features, which forced developers to write these complicated, messy workarounds in their application code for any complex task. MySQL was basically hitting a glass ceiling. But that glass ceiling? It was about to get completely shattered. Two key releases were on the horizon, ready to redefine MySQL's entire place in the tech world. And this change happened incredibly fast. In 2003, version 4.1 arrived. Then, just 2 years later, the monumental version 5.0 was released. This rapid-fire succession kickstarted a brand new era for the database. One of the most critical new features was the stored procedure. Before this, all your important business logic had to live outside the database, in the application code. Stored procedures let you package and store that logic inside the database itself. This was huge. It made applications cleaner, more secure, and, a lot of the time, much faster. And it wasn't just stored procedures, not by a long shot. Version 4.1 had already given us subqueries, our little hook from the beginning, and prepared statements for better performance. But version 5.0, wow, it truly opened the floodgates. It introduced triggers, which let you automate actions when data changes. It gave us views, which act like virtual tables to simplify complex queries. And it gave us the information schema, a way for developers to finally query the database's own structure. This wasn't just an update, it was a complete arsenal of new tools. So, the really crucial point here is that this wasn't just about adding features for the sake of it. This was about closing a critical gap and transforming development from a world of painful workarounds to one of native, built-in power. And this illustrates the difference perfectly. Before, your core business rules were all tangled up in your application code. After, they could be embedded right in the database with stored procedures and triggers. Before, you had to kind of guess at the database structure. After, you could just query it directly. This completely changed how developers built applications on MySQL. This whole evolution really exposed a critical truth that's still so relevant today. Scaling an application isn't just about handling more traffic. It's about having the features and the capabilities to manage complexity. Speed wasn't enough. MySQL needed real power. So what happens when an already popular tool suddenly gets this whole new level of power? Well, the consequences were immediate and they were dramatic. MySQL was officially ready for the enterprise. The adoption just exploded. All of a sudden, huge, large-scale companies and mission-critical applications saw MySQL not as the cheap alternative, but as a viable, feature-rich, and powerful choice. It began appearing everywhere, from finance to e-commerce, powering some of the biggest names on the web. So, looking back at this incredible transformation, what are the key lessons we can take away from MySQL's journey? First, it's those advanced SQL features that truly define an enterprise-ready database. Second, giving developers access to metadata is incredibly empowering. Third, allowing logic to live inside the database really simplifies your application architecture. But the biggest lesson of all was a cultural one. This proved, without a doubt, that an open source project could go head-to-head with billion-dollar commercial giants and win. So this entire journey, from a beloved but limited tool for web developers in the early 2000s to a full-featured enterprise standard by the mid-2000s, it all happened because of the groundwork laid in versions 4.1 and 5.0. It was a truly remarkable and incredibly rapid evolution. It leaves us with a fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? For MySQL, it was a suite of enterprise features. But for any technology, what is that one pivotal feature, or maybe a set of features, that elevates it from just being another tool into a global standard?